Hello, I'm Marilyn Hamilton, and I am the founder of Integral City Meshworks. And today I've been asked to speak to you about the Integral City 12 intelligences and how to do an audit of your city. So one of the best places to start is actually on the website. And I'm going to share my screen of the website to show you how to find out several resources. And then I will walk you through the audit that you are able to use and apply without any charge. So first of all, let's go and look at the website. So the website for Integral City has, of course, the homepage, but go to the one that's indicated as Voices and Intelligences. And if you hover over that, you'll find that there's really three parts to that page: 4 voices, 12 intelligences, and 5 maps. So elsewhere, I have a good video explaining the 4 voices. And on the website, you will be able to scroll past those. And if you want to look at what we want to talk about today, the Integral City GPS, where the 12 intelligences are located, you can find, if you click on the 12 intelligences and the GPS that are relating to the GPS system that you see pictured here, you will find good explanations in the videos that I have done for those. But today, people wanted me to talk about something a little different that actually applies the 12 intelligences using a paper-based audit trail. So here's what that looks like. When I share this in cities, I often call this a 12 intelligence discovery tour. So it takes each one of the 12 intelligences that you can find described on the website. And if you read it in the book, you can read a full definition chapter by chapter of the intelligences. And you can even download a recording, an audio book, a talking book of the first book that describes the 12 intelligences. So there's really quite a number of resources for you to get an in-depth view. But what happens if you turn up in a city, like I'm often invited to do? How would I go around the city and actually take a discovery tour using the 12 intelligences as the lens? So you can see here that the 12 intelligences is a 2-page discovery tour audit. And the first page is describing 1 to 6 intelligence. And each intelligence is given the opportunity to be described as latent, meaning it's, of course, an intelligence that would be in the system but not expressed. You could also describe the intelligence that the city itself, through people, are aware that they have this intelligence. On a more intense level, you could say that people are not only aware, but they're actively implementing and coming from this intelligence in their actions. And then the last scoring on the Likert scale is advanced. And advanced is, of course, kind of like a master application of that intelligence. And on the forum, you're allowed to make comments and give the kinds of examples that you might find. So let's just go through these intelligences and you can see how this would work. So first of all, we have the ecosphere intelligence. And for each of the definitions of these intelligences, I'm going to refer you back to the website or the book or the recordings, because then you'll get a much more fully explained definition of the intelligence. So the questions, though, that are at the end of each chapter, and which I've adapted for this form, actually reveal to you a good deal about the workings of that intelligence. So for an ecosphere intelligence, the questions or what I would be looking for as evidence are, first of all, honoring the climate and geography of your city. Are you aware of, say, that you're a city on the lake and you live in a temperate climate zone? Secondly, do you steward the environment? So does that mean that you not only accept where you are in your environmental terms, but you are regenerating it. So you're serving it. And are you aware of that? Or is that only a latently conscious expression that your city is actually practicing, not explicitly? And then the last observation related to the ecosphere intelligence is, are you adding value to the Earth space? So if you hear me speaking in other places, I would say that humans, through their cities, are seeking to add value to the Earth space in the same way that bees and their beehives add value to their bioregion. And of course, bees do that by pollinating. James Lovelock said that humans are Gaia's reflective organs. So I would say that in some way, humans would be having to add value to their workspace that relates to how they are serving Earth through the intelligence of the humans and the ecosphere and all of the intelligences, but particularly because in this intelligence, the ecosphere one, which is a contexting intelligence, you need to be aware, is the city drawing resources from the earth beyond which they can be regenerated, or is it in fact adding value to the earth by regenerating what it is taking and hopefully going beyond that? So there you have the first intelligence, ecosphere intelligence. The second one is emerging intelligence. And here's what you would observe for an emerging intelligence. Are you surviving so holons serve each other's existence? What's a holon? It's a whole system. So one way would be to say, are individual people surviving so they're supporting the living of other people? Are humans surviving so they're supporting the life systems of other non-human beings? Are they supporting what we call biodiversity in their city? The next observation relating to emerging intelligence is adapting to the environment. So since I consider an integral city a living city, one of the qualities of a complex adaptive system that is alive is that it must be able to adapt to its environment. So that's why I have located that in the emerging intelligence, because of course our environments on every scale are always dynamic. And then the third element of emerging intelligence is creating a self-regenerating feedback loop by interconnecting human regeneration cycles so that they replenish the environment. So again, when you're looking at complex adaptive systems, we know that one of the things that enables them to continue life is that they have feedback loops. And in this case, the feedback loops need to tell us not only are humans regenerating life so that they're supporting human life, but are they supporting it for the whole of the collective life in the city and also its bioregion? So there you have the three elements of emerging intelligence. The third intelligence I've identified as integral intelligence. And here are the elements of that intelligence. Firstly, can you map the territory of your city integrally, horizontally through the 4 quadrants, vertically through 8+ levels of development, diagonally through its change states, and relationally through the nested holarchies and fractals of complexity? Yes, this is a very complex capacity in the integral intelligence. And if you look elsewhere and find the 5 maps of the city, you will understand what I'm meaning about mapping the territory. So I won't try to unfold that here, but I will refer you to another video that I have made of the 5 maps of the city. So again, if you think about how you would score this, are people even aware that you can map the city in both the qualitative and quantitative way, both the individual and collective way that integral intelligences allow you to do? Is there anybody actively doing that? Or are some cities now in an actual advanced state where they're doing this kind of mapping? Oftentimes they've even adapted it to intelligent dashboards that are electronically run. The second element of integral intelligence is create and sustain an integral mapping system at the highest sustainable level of complexity that is appropriate to the capacities of city management. Now, this is kind of a deep package, a pocket of extra information around mapping, because it takes into consideration that the city management itself will have a capacity to absorb and apply integral thinking or not. Integral thinking that is required for integral intelligence requires the capacity to think in systems. So if you can see evidence in your city management that they can think in systems and be able to see all of the living systems alive and functioning in the city, then you may have some reason for scoring this as evidence as being either aware or active. And the third element of integral intelligence I've identified is learn from and update the maps annually or more often. So these maps are not just static street maps, but they're dynamic, conscious, cultural, bio-social maps of the city. And they do show the relationships, and they do show the evolutionary development of the city. So in that respect, because as I noted above, in the emergence intelligence, the city is always in an environment that is changing. Even if we were able to hold people and keep them statically the same, say from year to year, that's hard to imagine unless it was, even if it was a prison, it's hard to imagine because the environment is always changing around us. Yesterday it was raining here, today it's sunny. So if you want to look at the elements of the city that are managing water, that's going to impact how we would actually integrally map the city. So we need to keep them up to date. Our fourth intelligence I call living intelligence. And this is really revealed in the first element, which I describe as honor the dance of life cycles in the city. So one of the things I observed when I started to rethink the city was that, again, a lot of the time there's an assumption that everybody is the same age or of the same generation. But we now know that there's pretty close to 7 generations alive at the same time in the city. And this kind of is a way of honoring what the indigenous communities have said, that we need to make decisions onto the 7th generation. So in this intelligence, honoring the dance of life cycles in the city means that we not only think about our own age cohort, but those that have preceded us, so our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and those who are following us, our children, our great-grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren. And so there I have just named from my great-great-grandparent to my great-great-grandchild 7 generations. And that's how I would honor the dance of life in the city. I would be aware of all of those different generations and the impacts they have on one another. The second element in living intelligence is integrating the natural cycles of change within the city. So not only are there life cycle changes, but there are states of change that flow through the city. And elsewhere, I will have written about those. But the states of change in the city tell us whether the city is in a situation that's pretty stable, or if it's going through change that is transactional, or is it in a trap or even a gamma change that's so drastic that the city is stuck, blocked, and doesn't know what to do. So some of the examples that might be related to this would have come out of the COVID pandemic lockdowns. So those cycles of natural change that would have been flowing through the city all of a sudden were blocked. And we're still recovering as I'm making this recording 2 years after the peak of that. We're still recovering in different cities in different ways from that example of the living intelligence in a city being severely challenged. And the third element of the living intelligence I've identified as learning how to zoom in and out at different scales to dance with the fractal patterns of the city. So elsewhere, you will hear me describe that the patterns in the integral city, in living cities, are fractal. They repeat each other. So I discovered this when I was studying it throughout my career, the development of leadership, the development of teams, of organizations, of communities, of whole cities. Each one of them is at a different scale of human systems, and they're fractal. They more or less reflect the same patterns that human biopsychocultural social evolution or development reveals. So learning how to zoom in and out means, can I look at an individual and notice how they are in the context of a larger fractal, say the community, or how is the community here doing in relation to other communities in the city? So this living intelligence is taking into consideration not only the generations, not only change, but also being able to zoom in and out at different scales. I'll just pause and remark that these first four intelligences I call contexting intelligences. So they form a little set that, in fact, holds on the GPS system the outer bezel of the city, so that allows us to see all these contexts and how they impact the city. Let's now go on to the next two intelligences. The first of these is number 6. Number 5. This is the inner intelligence. Inner intelligence is about the consciousness inside an individual, and a way to notice that this is happening is our people showing up and being self-aware, present, and mindful. So I have colleagues who are now doing mindfulness meditations in the centers of cities. Well, that would be an example of very active element of this intelligence being on stream for that city. The second is an inner intelligence, is noticing the city intelligence and mapping them integrally. So this is being able to imply and apply that the city scale itself, the city has an inner intelligence, and can we map that integrally? What is the consciousness of the city? How would we describe it? Is it about peace, order, and good government? Is that the main consciousness that flows through your city? Or is it very vital, creative, and expressive city where there are arts and crafts and many expressions of consciousness? And then the third element of the inner intelligence I've identified is growing leadership in heart, mind, and soul. So looking at how we support the growth of leadership in a city is this third element relating to its inner intelligence. So if you can look around and see, yes, in our city, we have many ways of supporting leadership, not only in adults, but even in youth and in children. And that we are constantly finding ways to support and improve that leadership. So along with inner intelligence, not surprisingly, we have outer intelligence. And the evidence for outer intelligence, first of all, I identify as managing personal energy. So is energy kind of passive and non-expressive, or is it exuberant and really unmanaged? Or is energy actually managed and expressed in not only culturally accepted ways, but that generate and regenerate and inspire others? So managing personal energy also relates to the second as seeking biophysical well-being for self and others. So an example here might be being aware of how to eat in a healthy way, actually physically working out, being aware of what is the well-being that people in this city are able to provide evidence for through various salutogenic indicators, that is, health and well-being indicators. And finally, the third element for the outer intelligence that I have is nurturing healthy leaders. So not only do we need to cultivate leaders through inner intelligence, we also need to nurture that they are externally, outwardly intelligent and healthy as well. So we are able to find ways in the city for, say, adults to participate in sports, or children to participate easily in, say, a walking school bus, those sorts of things. So I'm just now going to turn us to the second page, which actually starts on the bottom of this one. But before I do that, I would like to just point out that the fifth and sixth intelligences, the inner and the outer, form what I call the set of individual intelligences. So now we're going to go on to another double set that forms collective intelligences. So the first one I call either building or structure or systems intelligence. I offered more than one because in different places, different taxonomies are used or different descriptions are used. But the external building intelligence, the first evidence would be managing life-sustaining energy for all. So this would be commensurate on the collective level of making sure that everyone has healthy opportunities for energetic input and energetic output. The second element in building intelligence is design from the center at all scales for all holons. So this is an evidence that design is actually coming from the center of the collectives. It means that city blocks are designed in relation to neighborhoods. Neighborhoods are connected to communities, communities to the whole. Each one of those could be considered a holon, and each one of them, of course, is at different scales. So that is why designing from the center for all holons is taking into consideration a good deal of the ways that form shows up in the city and how it functions. And the third element of the building intelligence is building structures that integrate self-organizing creativity with hierarchies of order. And you will find that this will be reflected in another one of the intelligences we'll talk about in a minute that I call meshworking. But here, we must understand that we have a responsibility in the city to build structures that integrate our self-organizing creativity and support us, because in fact, the structures in cities that we build actually emerge as scaffolds that support one another. They're foundational. So when you think about how you build a building, of course, it starts with a foundation, and then you'll build the elements that allow for a first floor, a second floor, however high the structure is being built. And we need to integrate any structures that we build with the self-organizing dynamics of the city. So if you're looking at how to score something like this, are you even aware that that's some of the design principles that you should be building into your structures? Or do you have an advanced city with building structures that are not only soundly designed, but integrated well with the dynamic life of the city? So as I said, these last two intelligences go together, or this intelligence goes together with the next intelligence. So building intelligence now goes with the eighth one, which is storytelling or cultural intelligence. And cultural intelligence, here's the evidence I look for here. Do people respect other people? So when they're speaking to one another, are they respectful, even if they agree to disagree? Secondly, are people able to listen deeply, or do they have to keep butting in and expressing their opinions? So this collective capacity to listen together is very important. And the third element of storytelling, or the cultural intelligences, is allowing your story along with others. So speaking your story and enabling others to speak theirs to co-create communities of integral practice. So stories are finding in our expression of culture and how we're conveying meaning these days more and more an important role. So being able to allow for stories to emerge and holding them both respectfully and listening to them all work together in this storytelling or cultural intelligence. And this intelligence is matched with the building or systems intelligence to create the collective intelligence. So now that brings us to another set of intelligences that I call the strategic intelligences. And the first one in the strategic set is called inquiry intelligence. In the book, it's chapter 9. And on the bezel, it's listed as inquiry intelligence. So here are the elements I look for inquiry intelligence. Are you asking what's working around here or not? And can you co-generate a vision for the city's contribution to the planet? So this inquiry intelligence is not doing a heavy top-down, this is the way you should do things. Rather, it opens up curiosity, it opens up questioning, it opens up wanting to know how we can work together to co-create a vision. The second element in the inquiry intelligence is creating an integral city and community plan. So is there some evidence that there is an integral view of the city, and is there a plan built around those integral principles? And the third element is implementing and managing the plan appropriately at all scales in the city. I've already spoken before in the other intelligences about the necessity to integrate scales and holons. So an inquiry intelligence learns how to be able to do this together. And it also, of course, must bring those other intelligences from contexting and individual and collective together to do this. The second element of the inquiry intelligence is creating an integral city and community plan. And the third one is implementing and managing the plan appropriately at all scales in the city. So quite a challenge. This brings us then to the meshworking intelligence, which I said I had referred to earlier when we were looking at the building intelligence. Meshworking is a way to combine the best of two operating systems, the self-organizing one and the structuring one. So they both must emerge. And when I'm looking for evidence of this, I look for how are we catalyzing fractal connections within the human hive. So this means, once again, how are we bringing together the individuals and the groups they belong to, say in their organizations or workplaces, into their communities and other ways that they connect together in various fractal ways within the city. The second element is building communication bridges across silos, stovepipes, and solitudes. So meshworking holds the possibility that we can work together across all of these forms that tend to happen when we contract around a particular way of doing things. Silos for sectors, stovepipes for groups that don't want to associate with others or are afraid to, and solitudes, which are the individuals in our city that may feel that they're isolated and not able to connect. So meshworking reaches out to include all of these and building bridges between them. And the third element of meshworking is enabling meshes and hierarchies that transform, transcend, and transmute capacities. So one of the great values of meshworking, because it combines the self-organizing systems along with the structuring, is that it actually builds capacity in the city and allows us to transform on a very large scale, to transcend, to include and combine and recalibrate what has gone before, and also to transmute on another level to maybe shift the note of the city to move from one change stage to another. So meshworking is a very powerful intelligence. The 11th intelligence is navigating. The elements that I look for navigating relate to, firstly, selecting a future direction, a future destination of the city based on its vision. And I've learned through the studies of things like sociocracy and holacracy that destination does not actually need to be arrived at in a straight line. In fact, in living systems, it's rarely ever going to be arrived at in straight lines. We kind of navigate in course corrections and go with the flow. The second element of navigating is design and implement integral dashboards using integral indicators and the well-being that they show for the city. So I'm using the wisdom that comes out of being able to see a city holistically, which is what an integral view allows, so that we actually set up dashboards to track. And this I have done using basically paper-based dashboards, but now there are many dashboards that are available that are electronic. So the dashboards can be very advanced and show not only what I suggest as being sort of the basic indicators on a dashboard. I still like the simplicity of a traffic light system where you can tell by looking at the dashboard, are we on track? It's a green light. Is there some disturbance in the system that we should be aware of, showing a yellow light? Is there something blocking the well-being of the system and shows up as a red light? So the dashboards can give us very quick feedback, and we can then share that in navigating for where we want to go. And the last element of the navigating intelligence is noticing outcomes and making course corrections to enable progress naturally. Just exactly what I said, that we are doing the navigation in such a way that we're not eternally connected to something that cannot change. Life is far too dynamic, and we need to be able to course correct and share that information with others, which we can when we're navigating as a collective. So this set of three intelligences, inquiry, meshworking, and navigating, I consider to be strategic intelligences. That's the set that these belong to. Finally, the last intelligence I call evolving intelligence. And the observations that I make to reveal this intelligence, firstly, are expect the unexpected. So evolving intelligence is the impulse that flows through all the other intelligences, and it is forever responsive to changes in the whole system. And so expecting the unexpected is a wise intelligence to gain as a city. Secondly, pay attention to the rules. What are the rules? Well, we could say the rules are all the other intelligences that are on the GPS. We could also say that they're the four voices of the city. They could also be the maps, the 5 maps of the city that I proposed. That each of them in this, including this whole discovery tour, are a set of rules that help us and guide us to live integrally, holistically, complexly, adaptively within the city. And then the last element of evolving intelligence, I say, enable emergence and resilience by transcending and including integral capacities at level 8 and beyond. So this is simply imagining that evolving intelligence will continue to evolve, and there is never, ever an end to our intelligence's learning and unfolding in a city. And this should not depress us, because that means that no matter what we encounter, the evolutionary intelligence will come as an impulse through us and allow us to discover what is it that life living through the individuals and collectives in the city wishes to unfold. So there you have the 12 intelligences in the Discovery Tour. And then I have the very last one, which I called here the Master Rule. I've also now called it the Gaia Code of Care. And I even talk about it as a Care Ma Yoga. So can you look around and see in the city, are people taking care of themselves? Are they taking care of each other? Are they taking care of their place? And together, are they taking care of the planet? So there you have it. That is the 12 Intelligence Discovery Tour that goes along with the other videos that I've made that describe more fully the 12 intelligences and the GPS. So thank you so much.